I think it's highly unfair to put me out after your premier. Now, I know that I haven't got all those good things to tell you about that's happening here in the province, but I have to say I do live in Ontario. Compared to the right-wing asshole we have in Ontario, you're so blessed here, so stay focused and work hard, because you don't want to lose sight of what you're doing here. First, let me start by thanking you, of course, both David, Laurie, board members, and of course all the delegates here for inviting me, but also I want to say how happy I am to be here at your convention, and thank you for all the great work you do every single day to help build this union. As you know, this is not just your two top officers who build this organization. It is the work you do every single day in the workplace, in the shop store, as a health and safety activist, as human rights activist, a community activist, the outreach, talking and engaging members, because the union doesn't get built by itself. It gets built by people who are committed to have those conversations, challenging times, reaching out to members to counsel them, to support them, and to ensure they understand the broader efforts that we are working towards and trying to advance the interests of working people. And like you became a union member, probably just like me. You got hired in a unionized workplace, and then you had to discover your politics and learn about things that maybe you didn't get a chance to learn either growing up in a family or not being in a union environment. And I think that I always say, we have to pick our members. We're a very different organization, but the reality is we got to struggle with what we got and try to make the best of it. And I want to thank you for the incredible work you do, because I know every single day you're building this great organization to try and make it even better and more stronger. And of course, it's an ongoing effort, and all of us have to labor in that to make it a success. Of course, like here in British Columbia and other provinces across the country, we just had a municipal election, and I want to thank you for your involvement and the work you've done at the local level. As we try to contextualize it, politics is local, where people live. If we can teach them to get engaged, it takes some responsibility to get engaged, and we can bring them along to the next level at the provincial, and then of course at the national level. What we do at the local level is so important. Sidewalks, schools, of course, who represents us at City Hall is very vital, and people we elect at the local level is so critical in terms of the progressive agenda. When you had only 2 members of the legislature sitting there representing your interests, what you did have, of course, is a lot of people across the province who represent at the municipal level fighting, of course, to bring progressive values. And of course, most recently in British Columbia, we endorsed 230 individuals that we felt was closer to our values and we could support in their re-election. And out of that, 164 of them got elected because of your effort right across the province. According to our calculations, that's a 65% success rate, and I know we got to work to do better than that. More importantly, I'm also so proud of my friend Kennedy Stewart to becoming the mayor of Vancouver. I can tell you every time he gets up to represent this great city, I'm going to feel so proud of the work he's going to do to keep raising the values of progressive politics in the city council and of course the city of Vancouver. And of course I know that this proportional representation referendum is very vital. You have an incredible opportunity to show this country of ours that we can do things better. And this is a very, very critical moment in the history of our country. If you look at the democracies around the world and you watch what's happening, we all have to be fearful. I'm seeing a rise in fascism I have never seen in the likes of this particular moment that we're living in. The country that I go through quite regularly, Brazil, not so long ago, Lula da Silva, a progressive socialist leader, led that country for 8 years. After him, of course, Roosevelt Dilma replaces him. And of course, they impeached her and had all kinds of stuff. And just recently in their election, a fascist got elected in that country. A man who says, that to another legislature, of course, in the Senate, that she was too ugly to rape, said that if his son, he ever find out his son was gay, he'd prefer to him to be dead. And this is now the president of Brazil, and the kind of things he said about what the military did under military dictatorship in that country, he endorses. But this is not just happening in Brazil. My European friends that I talk to on a regular basis, I travel to Europe, they're fearful of what is happening there. And I think this is a way for us to reinvigorate our democracy, to show people it matters to get involved, and of course, ensuring that the democracy actually serves their interests. And all I could say to you, this is vital, the country is watching, and I think we can do something truly transformative across this country to send a great message that politics can be different, can be progressive. I can tell you this, as progressive, we will never lose if we have proportional representation. Never lose. Never lose. And the value of this great nation of ours has always been the same. The vast majority of Canadians, if you look at the 51 years of history, people have always been on the progressive side of politics. That's how we build this great nations of ours. Every so often, it jars itself and moves to the right, and I think this is going to be an important opportunity for you at the end of the day. Let me talk about some of the work we're doing at a CLC level, and I want to thank MoveUP and COPE for sending, of course, activists to our lobby when we do them in Ottawa. Lobby is not the panacea for the political work we do, it's one part of it. We back it up with the work that we do at election time, the work we do, of course, in our workplace with our employers, on the bargaining table, but also we got to fight for progressive change. We get to vote at election time, and in between we don't sit on our hands. We actually mobilize and remind the elected officials that we elect that they got to serve our best interests. I want to thank you for coming to the national lobby. We're going to do it again next year. We're going to, of course, be talking about some of those issues if you come. But I do want to say to you, all of the lobby we've been doing, because we set down markers in the CLC. We're not just interested in lobbying some things. We're interested in actually winning victories on behalf of working people. And you've been part of that history. Starting January, of course, 2019, one of those victories that we fought for in this country for 10 years is to expand the public pension plans so every Canadian can have a decent pension when they retire. Starting in 2019, our Canada pension will be increasing by 33% for every Canadian who pays for that. That's your hard work. That is your hard work across this country. When they said it couldn't be done, we did it. Because we stuck to our agenda, we were disciplined, we were focused, and we were steadfast, determined. We were not going to give up until we win that fight. And I can tell you, for the younger generations of Canadians who are growing up, starting out their first job in this country, who are not likely to have a workplace pension unless they belong to a union, we fought for them. My young daughter, who's 10 years of age, by the time she become an adult, I can tell you one thing, she'll be living in a country where her public pension will be better than what her father was entitled to. Because of the work we did as a trade union movement in this country, I'm so proud of that at the end of the day. December 30th of this year, we fought for something that defied the history of our nation. Every year, families bury loved ones. 2,000 of them in this country die of asbestos-related disease. They did not do anything wrong. They interact with a fiber of a substance that will kill you. That's what asbestos is. I know this firsthand. I work with asbestos as a young mechanic. It's embedded in my lungs. When it will kill me, I may be one of the fortunate ones. Maybe I'll never die of the disease. But every year, working families bury 2,000 loved ones in this country. Still, 2,000, not 200, 2,000 people die of asbestos-related disease because they were exposed to that substance sometime in their lifetime. And over a 25 or 30-year period, it will infect you. Sometimes it kills you. We fought to ensure that our government, our federal government, reflect on what they said when they campaigned. They're going to rely on the science to govern their decision. Long before our campaign, not just the one we just launched, of course, launched to win this victory, the science was always there that said asbestos is a carcinogen and it should have been banned, but the political leadership was not there. And our work as a trade union movement and the lobby and the work we did saw that ban came into 2016. The government had to write the regulation that's taking effect December 30th of this year. You were the ones who did that work, who came to Ottawa to lobby for that ban. I can tell you the work that we have done will serve the interest of this station for generations to come. Generations to come. At some time, that stance will go down. We banned the import of asbestos. On December the 30th, you could no longer stockpile asbestos material and insist on selling it on the marketplace. You cannot have any stockpile, you have to dispose of it. More importantly, we cannot export asbestos again, which we used to do in this country to other countries to kill other human beings, and we know we would not accept in our own country. That's your work. We won that fight because of your effort and your activism. Thank you so much, my friends. At the federal level, there was a report that was tabled a long time ago, and this has to do with women's equality. We were fighting the Wilson report over 15 years ago, talked about proactive pay equity legislation to affect the lives of women. Women who still work today that make 32 cents less than men. Majority women. If you're a woman of color, Aboriginal women, or women with disability, you're likely to make even less. And by the way, we took on that fight and continued that fight. The last 3 years have been a heroic effort. Those who came from your union to Ottawa was part of that lobby 2 years ago. Just this Monday of this week, the federal government announced a proactive pay equity legislation that's going to take effect as soon as that bill passes Parliament and the Senate, which will be before December 31st of this year. We will have a pay equity commission to go with that work, who will ensure they can enforce and work with the parties to ensure they can reach settlement. But more importantly, this is really about women's equality. So there's a lot of debate about how do you improve women's lives. Well, economically, you have to pay them the same as men so they can have better pensions, so they don't live in poverty and they can take care of their families. And that is defied at federal level generations. This will affect banks, telecommunications companies, the transport companies across this land, and will also affect the Prime Minister's office, parliamentarians, and the federal public sector, who for decades have been laboring for this to happen. One of the most famous cases we had at the federal level took 28 years of litigation. 28 years. The people who were involved in that litigation were long dead. It was their estate that got the settlement that they finally won. The lawyers spent 28 years fighting in the courts. It was unacceptable. That's what we fixed this week on Monday. We brought in a law that we, the trade union movement, have fought for to see, finally, justice for women in this country to ensure the work that they do beside their men no longer should be on their value. I think it will get impetus. The provinces across this country to say we need the same legislation across this land to ensure every woman are paid the same. We also took on something 4 years ago, which I have to say every time I speak about it, I'm choked up. 4 years ago, we did a survey of our entire membership about women's experience in domestic violence. And the result we got was not very proud. They experience it in their homes, they experience it in the workplace when they go to work, because the partner can still reach into that workplace even though they're not at home anymore, and still continue to experience that violence. We took on that work because we understand you cannot sit idly by knowing what those statistics will reflect. Because we wanted to ensure we have legal protection for women in this country from coast to coast, that when they face domestic violence and they have to get out of that situation, they would have the legal protection of the legislature. So if they have to go and change a bank account, or they have to move their kid from school, or they have to sign a new leasing agreement, they should not have to suffer a loss in pay. And our campaign was very deliberate. They should have time to go and do that, but when they take that time off, they should be paid for their employer. And this is a societal problem. Every year, every night in this country, 3,000 women and their children sleep in shelter. Every night in this country. That's the truth. It's shameful and it's unacceptable. That violence is not going to simply end because we have legislation. It's going to end when men take responsibility to challenge their fellow men that says your behavior is unacceptable. bill that was introduced on Monday, women will have 10 days off in the federal code, and 5 of those days will be paid for by their employer. Since we started this campaign, we have won this right in Ontario. We have won this right, of course, in Manitoba, in New Brunswick, in PEI. I'm going to Newfoundland on Monday, and I'm going to meet with the Premier there to tell him the same thing. We are not going to rest until right across this country, every legislature passed the same legislation to ensure women have continuity of rights in every legislative assembly right across this land. When we achieve that, then we will go in another direction. Of course, the last couple of things I want to talk to you, of course, the Labour Code Part 3. You heard your Premier here talk to review your Labour Code. Why is this important? As I talk to you, the world of work has changed. If you go back and look at the way we used to do things 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's all different. You know, employers today misclassify workers. Not because they're stupid. Why? Because they can exploit them even more. Oh, no, you're an agency worker. You're not on our payroll. We pay you through the agency. We take no responsibility. You never get seniority. You never qualify for vacation. Never even assure you're going to get overtime or when you're going to come to work. And this has been reality. 14 years ago, we worked with the federal government then to look at the federal labor code and said, how can we overhaul that code? Harry Archer wrote a brilliant piece of work, a report, and the Conservatives let it sit on the shelf for their entire 10 years they were in office. We challenged the new government when they came into office and said, you got to dust that report off and put in, of course, those recommendations in place and try to look at other things we can do. On Monday, the government tabled those pieces of legislation. For the first time, we're going to see the modern federal labor code that recognizes reality that part-time and full-time workers should not be treated any differently in the federal code. Should be paid the same. Getting advance notice of their schedules, having opportunities to take time off from the job and be compensated for it, family time leave, all of those things we recognize. And it's going to be a modern code, but it took years of effort and not giving up. And that was also part of the lobby that we did when your delegates came to Ottawa to lobby the federal government. We now won that. There's a couple of things missing in the code. We have airports across this country where an employer can simply flip a contract, say the contract is up for bidding, and then the workers, of course, conditions will change overnight. There's a new company that bids and bid the contract and says, no, we're not paying those rates. We're not maintaining that collective agreement. Well, finally, we ended that charade. The fact of the matter is, when you go through the airports across this land, which you don't know, in every ticket you buy to get on an airplane, the airport authority gets to impose a tax on you, and they only ask your opinion. Well, if they can have a monopoly as what we are going to pay when we go through their airport, they can treat workers the same bloody way. We want that, my friends, and I think it's going to make a significant difference in the work we're going in. This is hard work. It is difficult work. We need to recognize we can make a difference, and we are making a difference across this land. And we can continue to build this great movement like you're doing here in British Columbia. How do we advance the interests? Working people can only have a fair shot when they have a union. In between that, the legislation we pass cover every worker across this great land. So I want to end on the last thing I want to talk to you about. When Tommy Douglas started this campaign to ensure health care is going to be a fundamental right of Canadians, he always envisioned that PharmaCare will be part of that healthcare system. And for all his life, it defies us. It was part of the grand bargain when the healthcare system was created. But we never got the federal government to create and make PharmaCare. There have been commissions after commissions that looked at this, report back, nothing to happen. So 2 years ago when we started our campaign for PharmaCare, we were pushing the federal government, and of course there's lots of dialogue going on. And I said to them, I'm not interested in telling you you're going to study the problem, because we've had study after study. What we're really interested in is the process about implementing PharmaCare for Canadians across this land. That's what we're interested in. I'm here to determined to win that, my friends, they created a commission, not to study PharmaCare, but to recommend back how we can implement PharmaCare. I did a 23-city tour across this country talking to our members of the community. And the stories that I heard from fellow trade unionists and people in the community would rip your heart out. Moms who came out and told me the story saying, my deductible for my workplace plan is $650. If I had $650, I would just buy the medication. Or a mom who told me my deductible is $1,000. I barely make minimum wage. My kid can't get well because I don't have the medication. Why should a mother have to make those choices? This is working class struggle. This is our struggle. We are fortunate to have our collective agreement. But there are thousands and thousands of people who every day wake up in this country and can't figure out where they're going to get the money. Sometimes to pay by grocery, to pay the rent, or even to get medication. And then the craziness of this, that if you get sick, you get into a hospital, you'll get any medication is required. They'll give you any drugs to just get you out the front door. But the minute they kick you out the front door, you're on your own. We've got the most expensive system, the third most expensive system in the world. First there's Switzerland, and then there's the United States, and then there's us. The highest cost for prescription drugs. In New Zealand, the same brand name drugs we buy in this country, they pay 40% less than we pay in Canada. Because they have PharmaCare, and they buy their medication by the bulk. Brand name drugs produced by Canadian manufacturer Merck, they pay 90% less in New Zealand than we pay in Canada. All because we don't have a national system. We got a patchwork. Everybody do their own thing. Because PharmaCare is not part of our healthcare system. Well, we are determined, my friends, we're going to win this fight. We started it on. The Commission has been traveling the country holding roundtables after roundtables for discussion with people. I went to one of those, I can tell you all of it. Then, of course, I was sitting at the table, and there was a guy there with his fancy shirts, and all of a sudden I said, well, who am I sitting with at my table? I couldn't figure out, but I knew one thing. He had his initial on his shirt, and I figured, what asshole would have his initial on his shirt? It's got to be the pharmaceutical guy, of course, and the minute we got into it, he was the pharmaceutical guy. He had every argument under the sun why we shouldn't have a national PharmaCare system. And I said, it's interesting. New Zealand does, and I don't think they have a crisis. By the way, the UK does, and they got more research and development than we can ever hope for, and they have a PharmaCare system. They got lower cost to go with it. But you would like to tell you, of course, no, we'll create a crisis. Well, if we continue the way we are right now, the pharmaceutical company and the insurance company will continue to benefit. This is a fight for all of us. Every time your union goes to the bargaining table, you know what I'm talking about, those of you on the bargaining committee. The number one fastest rising cost that we deal with at the bargaining table, guess what it is? Prescription drugs. That's it. And it will continue to get even more so, because with the drugs they are designing to deal with certain ailment, the only way we can bring the cost down is if we buy them by bulk buying at the end of the day. My friends, we've made great strides, but I know we're not going to win this fight until the next election. The Commission will report soon, and as I said to the federal government, you better put money in the next budget to show your colors. When we went to one of these round tables, they said, well, how are we going to pay for PharmaCare? Now this is a bit crude, so don't get it the wrong way. Remember when they cut corporate income tax from 23% to 15%? Did anybody send you a survey asking your opinion? When Stephen Harper said they're going to reduce the GST from 15 to 13, I don't remember them asking my opinion. I said, listen, we just won $6 billion to buy a pipeline. That's the same way we're going to find the money to pay for PharmaCare. My friends, this is a generational fight. This nation of ours, for many of us, we benefited from the generations before who fought for things like healthcare. Yes, there are some challenges with it, and we can improve it, and we got to fight to how we can do that. But this is a generational fight. This is something that we will do that will outlast any one of us. You know, every generation have a one responsibility. You have to fight to make it better for the next generation. This is our moment to put our mark on this nation. I know that we can make this happen. I need you to take an active engagement in this campaign. We will win this. I guarantee you we will win this. But you have to take an act together. Send an email to your member of parliament. Send an email to your legislative representative here, urging them to support, because we're going to need the province and the federal government to come together to do this. There'll have to be a formulary. There will have to be a commitment on the federal government how they're going to co-share the cost with the provinces. But if we were able to do this, for those of you who are fortunate right now to have it, you will never have to worry whether you're going to have coverage because of your generous employer or not. You will get it as a right. Just like when you get sick right now with your health card, you go to the hospital or your doctor, you don't have to worry whether you have money in the bank. Because the generations before us fought for that right. This is our moment. Now, I always refer to my 10-year-old daughter. I have no clue what her future is going to be like. As parents, every one of us hope for the best. But the reality is, if I want my daughter to have a better future than her father, then I've got some obligation to do things that will make sure when she gets to that stage, we've embedded these things as rights, as citizens, not subjected to generosity. What you and I have is a privilege. We have the privilege of having our coverage in our collective agreement. What I want to see happen in this coverage is that privilege to become a right for every citizen who live in this great nation of ours. We can do this. We can find a collective will to make it happen, and more importantly, I know we have the resource to pay for it. With your effort and your leadership, I know we will win this fight and make this country an even better place. Thank you so much for having me.